With a new presidency comes new promises, new progress, hopefully. New heads of state, they vow to take the country in a radically new direction, take the country forward, right? In some ways, that promise has already been fulfilled immediately after the swearing in of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the latter making history as the first woman and Black and Asian American person to serve as the vice president. Historic. But as they say, sometimes you got to go backwards to go forwards, right? Biden's presidency thus far has been marked by numerous executive orders that he signed. Many of those have actually been reversals from the past administration. Let's take a look at a few recent headlines here. Biden reverses transgender military ban. There you go. Biden revives support for the WHO, reversing Trump retreat. President Joe Biden rejoins the Paris Climate Accord. Biden reverses Muslim ban. Biden revokes permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. All right, so let's focus in on that most recent one, the one that I mentioned first, okay? And that's President Biden's repeal of the Trump-era ban on transgender people serving in the military. I'd like to read you guys a bit of text from the executive order. Quote, "It is my conviction as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces that gender identity should not be a bar to military service. Moreover, there is substantial evidence that allowing transgender individuals to serve in the military does not have any meaningful negative impact on the armed forces." And it goes further. Aside from reversing the orders Trump actually signed barring transgender individuals from military service, it immediately bars service members from being discharged or denied re-enlistment for their gender identity. It also directs the Department of Defense to correct the record of anyone dismissed from service for their gender identity. It orders both the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security to begin the process of allowing transgender service members to serve openly and freely. I'd like to bring in Victoria Peltier. She's IBM's Vice President of Talent and Transformation for North America. Welcome to the show, Victoria. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. Now, aside from reversing the ban on transgender individuals serving in the military, the president is also reversing a ban on diversity training at federal agencies and contractors. I didn't even know there was a ban on that. That just blew my mind. I did not even know that. I had to look into it. And I found that then President Trump said that diversity training was rooted in, and I quote, "the pernicious and false belief that America is an irredeemably racist and sexist country." So I guess when we're calling for progress, making bold demands such as equity, I suppose there will always be pushback. You know, fighting for women's rights seen by many as anti-man, fighting for gay rights as anti-straight, supporting BLM means you hate the police. But you got to move forward, I suppose.
Absolutely. You're right. Now, what's really interesting is we've been having this conversation for at least 2 decades. I personally have been an executive for just over 20 years, and I was the only woman at the table for a very long time. But the needle has not moved demonstrably. Right? You look at the Fortune 500, 37 of those CEOs are women. Even significantly fewer are Black. You look at where venture capital funding goes. You look at all the board level, on the S&P. Actually, I don't know if you saw that. The S&P just said within the last number of weeks, for the first time ever, all of the companies listed on its exchange have at least one female board member. So the needle hasn't moved. So I'm certainly hoping now with these demonstrable actions being taken, we're going to start to see some significant change.
Right. At least it feels like it because of the conversations that we're hearing. It seems like no progress was made. Well, some, but it was like so slow until recent years. We were having these conversations that weren't being had not that long ago. And it seems like things are moving quicker. But again, you're saying the needle's moving, but not as fast as we'd like it to. So I guess it's important to highlight diversity and have the conversations that you and I are having now. At least that's one thing that can be done. In terms of policy, now Biden's moves here to allow transgender people into the military again. I know that Americans who identify as trans make up less than 0.5% of the U.S. population, and even a smaller portion of those are keen on serving in the military. So this reversal is, for the most part, I guess, about sending a message, right? It's not going to make or break the military here. We're talking about a very small amount of people, but it's a message of inclusiveness, not exclusivity, right?
Absolutely. So when we look at diversity, they phrase it, and we talk about it now as diversity, equity, and inclusion. And inclusion is critical. You're right. The numbers are small. When you look at how much, I've seen anywhere from 9 to 15,000 in the military now. small as a whole, but the message this sends: you matter. You can bring your whole authentic self to the workplace, and you are invited in the case of trans persons, is critical. I mean, the data shows that in inclusive environments, there's greater collaboration and problem solving, productivity, and ultimately better top and bottom lines. The business case is there. Not that we should have to make a case for it because it's the right thing to do, but these things matter. And I'm so glad that Biden got fast and hard out of the gate, making the statement demonstrably about the type of country and workplaces that we want to work in and how we want to behave, and we want to treat everyone inclusively.
And talk a little bit about your role at IBM. What are you guys trying to do at your company? It's a huge company, right? So you got a big task on your hands. Tell me how you're tackling going about, transformation. It's in your title, right? It specifically in regards to the talent that you guys bring on at IBM. What's the plan there?
A number of things. So one of the reasons I actually chose to join IBM was because of the diverse, inclusive culture and values that we stand for. So we see that at all levels within the organization. We release publicly through our corporate social responsibility report our data around our diverse populations. Even though we've been bold around this almost since the beginning, the founders around this, the first female VPs in the 1950s, we still have more moves to take. So we're doing things like partnering in the early years. It isn't about just the visible board and executive levels. It's about building a pipeline for the future. So things like P-Tech schools, where we start looking in the elementary level and in the junior high and high school levels to start build talent for the future. That's one way. My role at IBM is actually supporting clients externally and helping them build strategies for their workforce, their culture, both not just purely from a technology perspective, as you know, IBM, but around the things we need to do strategically, intentionally in these areas, in building the workforce for the future.
Awesome. I love everything that you're saying. I'm totally with you. I think the most important point that we need to drive home is what you touched on a little bit in your last answer, which was, diversity in the workplace. Those things are proven to be a good thing. They help the company, they help people, they help everybody. That's, I think, a point that we cannot drive home enough. But Victoria Pelletier, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.